So in this tutorial we're going to take a look at unwrapping our model. Now I use a lot of hotkeys like Control and Shift. So please listen carefully when I'm explaining, when I say things like hold Shift and left click or hold Shift and right click, because they each yield different options. So we have our dumpster here from the last video, and we're going to go ahead and figure out how to unwrap it. So let's go to Window, UV Texture Editor, and once you open up the UV Texture Editor, you'll notice that it already has its own UVs set up. Now these are not what we want. They're completely convoluted. So the first thing I do is I go up to polygons and I just delete all the UVs. This gives me a clean workspace to work from. Now I'm going to go a little bit faster than other videos because in previous tutorials we did cover unwrapping, and I don't mind repetition. Like I think repetition is good, and reviewing old concepts is not a bad thing. But if you'd like to really master this material, go back, relearn the basics, and practice it over and over. Okay, so the first thing I do is I look for the area that's most important. For me, it's the front part of this dumpster, and that's what I'm going to give the most UV space to. Now, the next thing I do is I apply a checker material on there, so it helps me to sort of make sure that I normalize all of my UVs. So I'm going to right click, go down to Assign New Material. Now what I'm going to do is select Lambert. This should open up your attribute editor. I'm going to rename it from Lambert 2 to Checker Material. You can find a lot of checker materials or numbered UV materials online. To me, I've done it enough where I actually can eyeball any kind of weird stretching that's going to occur. So the checker material is just sort of a nice secondary precaution. So go ahead and click on the actual checkbox here and select checker. Now if I hit 6 right now, you're not going to see any texture or material on there now. And the reason is because there's no UVs. So let's take a look at unwrapping our first option. If I go in here and I select the faces of the front of my model and I shift right click, I can go over to face normals, toggle face normal display. You don't have to do this, but the reason I'm showing you this is because when you have face normals on, what it allows you to do is see the direction in which your normals are facing. Now that gives me an idea of how I should unwrap. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and undo that force face normals display, and I'm going to select all the faces that make up the front of my garbage can. Now I'm going to shift right click and go down to mapping. I'm going to planar map it on Z. How did I know to map it on Z? Well, because whenever I'm planar mapping, I want to make sure that I'm mapping it on the same axis as my face normal. And you can see that it draws a line there for you. Okay? Now, can I just leave this alone as is? Well, let me take a look at my checker material. The first thing you'll notice is it's pretty nice and even on the inside, but around the edges and areas where it kind of moves over, the shape of these checkers change, and they actually stretch and elongate. So one trick that I do to kind of speed up the process of unwrapping is I right click in here and I go to UV mode. I select all of those UVs that I just created. I hold the shift key down and I right click and I go up to unfold UV. Now you'll notice that it did a better job of really making sure that they're all uniform. Now I'm going to hold shift and right click again and go down to smooth UV tool. And what that'll do is that'll open an option. It'll create a little option box down here called unfold, and I'll drag to the right. If it's as unfolded as it possibly can get, it won't move. Alright? So for now, I'm just going to leave that off to the side. The next thing I want to do is I want to unwrap the side of my model. Now, if you remember from our modeling process, this is its own piece, and we have a couple of other pieces, and as such, they should all be unwrapped separately. Now, if there are objects that are repetitive and not very important, so objects that aren't really important are objects that are not really going to be seen that often, or we're not going to really look for much surface detail to the texture. For example, this object here, I really only need to unwrap once. The player is not really going to care if all these other options look exactly the same as this one. Plus, really, I mean, you don't want to you'd rather give the UV space to more important things like this, or if we want to put signage for the dumpster across the front. Also, at the end, what I might do is I might actually duplicate, when I merge these two sides together, these two faces and weld them and give them a big chunk of the corner of my screen. And you'll see that later. So let's start working on unwrapping the side view. And I'm just kind of working my way around. So I double click here. And what I'm going to do is, to make my life actually a little bit easier, I'm just going to select this and I'm going to hold shift and right click. And I'm going to separate my dumpster at this point. So that's going to separate everything out, and it's going to make unwrapping easier. So let's select this side face here and hide everything but that side face. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is select all of the faces here except for this back face. Shift right click, and I'm going to map it on X. And again, I know it's on X because of this line. Let's move it out here. I'm going to click off. Right click, go to UVs, highlight it. Shift right click again, go up to unfold UVs. Now, remember what I told you. My checker material is getting kind of wonky and crazy. So let's try to unfold it, or smooth UV. Still wonky and crazy. What's the problem here? Well, when you unwrap boxes or rectangles, really you want to think about it as a cardboard box, or boxes in the real world. You don't want your edges to rotate out. That's not the way the object isn't seen. If you look at it from the top view, these edges are straight, and your UV map should be a direct correlation to the way your unwrap is. So what you can do is go to edge mode, hit Q for selection, and select the edges by holding shift that make up those 4 edges. I'm going to shift right click again and cut those UVs. Now I'm going to go to UV mode, highlight all those UVs, shift right click, go down to smooth UV tool, and unfold it. Notice how they're perfectly straight now and clean? Because that's the way it is in the actual scene file. Notice how these lines are straight. They're not off on an angle. So that's one of the mistakes many people make when unfolding. Same thing here. I'm going to go to face mode, shift right click, mapping, planar map X. I'm going to move that off of here. Really, when it's just a flat plane, there is no need to I seem to just drop this on top. Control right click to shell. We'll select all those UVs. I'm going to move it over here. Now, like I was saying, sometimes when you unfold these things too, you want to double check it. Now this just being a plane, you don't have to unfold it. Alright, so let's go to images and turn on shaded UVs. This face is red. How did I know that it was going to be red and that I had to turn on shaded UVs? The reason is when we planar mapped it on X, it's actually facing, the normals are facing this direction. This face normal is facing the opposite direction. This is an easy fix. We want everything to be blue. If we leave it red, when we go to add lighting or texturing to the scene, we're going to get a weird black cast shadow. And a lot of times people are confused as to why an engine, in the game engine or in Maya's renderer, why they're getting a black face here or extremely dark. It's because your UVs also play off of lighting. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip this. And there, we're done. Alright. Now I'm going to go ahead and uncheck this. We're going to go ahead and knock out this guy. Same thing, I'm going to select it. Actually, go ahead and save at this point. I hate to admit it, but Maya likes to crash when you're unwrapping for some reason. So let's go ahead and highlight that. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and go to face mode. Select all of these faces. Actually, what you can do is you can select all of it, shift right click, mapping, planar map X, and we can go ahead and start manually cutting this. Alright, so how do we know what to cut? Well, there's a plane change from here. So this is one plane, and this is another plane here. So what I can do here is I can go to edge mode, and I can actually select these two edges here. And I'm going to shift right click in my view here and cut those UVs. So what that's going to do is when I go to unfold it, it's going to flatten that out. Let's go and do the same thing on this side. Here and here. Shift right click, cut UVs. Actually, I forgot about these two sides here. I want to make sure that when it unfolds like a box. So let's select those 4 edges, shift right click, cut UVs. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and select all these UVs, shift right click, unfold UVs, go down to my smooth UV tool, and unfold that again. And that looks pretty good. Now, what I'm noticing is there's distortion here. So that's a problem. It looks like these edges here didn't cut. Let me go back in and recut these edges. So cut UVs. Let's try unfolding it again. That's much, much better. And I'm going to keep going until it doesn't let me unfold anymore. Notice how we get nice, perfect, clean edges going all the way around because these edges are together. That's perfect. Okay, I'm going to hit Control S again. Forgive me, I'm going to have to constantly save. Believe it or not, we're almost done. Okay, same thing here. I'm going to take a look at this guy, unhide everything. Oops, sorry, in object mode, I'm going to select this guy and take a look at what's left. We actually have a little bit of an edge here. Now, in reality, I want to grab these verts and yank them down here to cover that up, because that's how it is in my scene. So let's select this guy, and I'm going to just go in and do a little bit of maintenance in here. Delete these two edges, they're not necessary. Now, the only thing I need to unwrap on the side here is this guy here. Alright, so Shift right click, Planar Map X. Let's bring this up here. Control right click to UVs, Shift right click unfold, Shift right click again, Smooth UV tool. Sorry if that was a bit fast, I'll go slower on the next one. But by now you should have realized it's the same 4 techniques over and over and over again. Alright, now I'm just going to lay it next to it. I want you to notice something. See how I placed the front here and then this top part up here? I unwrap this the same way that, I'm going to place it all in the box the same way it appears in the scene. You must do it this way. I mean, it's generally a good idea, at least when you're starting out. When you hand your model off to somebody else who's works in the industry or is going to text your model, you want to make sure that they can look at your UVs and look at the model and see that it's the same shape and it corresponds, so it's easier for them. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and flip this. Control right click to UVs, unfold, Smooth UV tool, unfold again. Alright, let's try to figure out why there's a separation here. So I select one UV in the corner, Control right click to shell. Let's move this down. This might be separated, and if it's not, it's because I forgot to select this face here and this face here. So I'm just going to map it again, planar map on Z, 2 UV, let's flip it, unfold, Smooth UV tool. Alright, so this is the back, and I'm going to place that right here. Alright, so we're really buzzing along here. I'm going to hit Control S to save that. Let me find this box, the shell. I'm going to just kind of bring this down here for a minute. Now mind you, this is the inside face here. I'm going to make this pretty small. Now the reason is, it's so hidden inside of the surface of that box. All you're really going to do when we do the ambient occlusion later is you're just going to see that shadow. So let's select this, and I'm holding Shift here, and you can select both. What that allows us to do is to tweak the UVs on both at the same time. So I'm going to hit R here and scale this up just a little bit. Now this isn't the way it's going to be the final composition in the box. For now, I'm just sort of setting it up. So we got a really nice thing going here. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is unwrap this little guy. That's going to be really easy. Alright, I'm going to start by selecting everything, mapping it on X, mapping planar map X. Alright, go to edge mode, cut UVs, unfold it, and we get a really beautiful unfold. Alright, that's looking great. After a while, you'll be able to do it just as quickly as I am. Now, something else I want to point out is we are only going to unwrap one of these wheels here because it's a repeated object, and it's so small in our scene that you won't even notice that they're repeated. Just like I did with this guy here. Alright, so let's sort of look at where I can place this to shell. Now I want to keep it in the same vicinity as this guy, so I'm just going to rotate it. Place it inside of here. Alright, same thing here to shell. Move it up here. Alright, let's take a look at this right here. This should be easy. I'm just going to map that on Y. Flip it. 2UV. Smooth that out. It looks like it's a bit disjointed. Alright, let's try that one more time. Mapping planar map Y to shell. Move this over here. I'm going to flip it and let's see if that unfold works. There we go. Yeah, it worked out great. Okay, perfect. I knew that because this is one continuous spherical object, I knew that it would unwrap fine. Now we get a little bit of weirdness here. Why is that? Well, it looks like I spoke too soon. We really need to cut these because these two sides are flat. So let's cut these out. I'm going to hit F to focus in on this guy. Again, notice that I'm cutting this edge here and this edge there. Alright. I'm going to shift right click, cut UVs. Now if you're not sure or you can't really see it, there's an option here that shows you where the seams are in your scene. And I cut it like that. Alright, let's go ahead and unfold this again. Perfect. Now, notice how beautiful and nice and clean those edges are? Let me do that one more time. See how wonky it looked before? Now it's nice and clean. Alright, now this guy is really, I mean it's important, but it's not as important as the other components. Notice how tiny it is? So, when I go to look at the bigger picture here, I'm just going to sort of place it down at the bottom. Alright? Same thing here. I don't really need to unwrap both of these guys, so I only have to unwrap just this one half. So I'm going to hit F to focus on him, hide everything but him, select all these faces. Actually what I can do is map this, shift right click mapping planar map X, move this off to the side. I'm going to go ahead and select these faces here. And I'm going to hit G to redo last action. Put it down here. Right click UV mode. Highlight all these guys. Unfold. Smooth UV tool. Looks great. Smooth UV tool. Or unfold rather. I'm going to rotate this around. Place it right next to it. To shell. Control right click to shell. Scale that down. Unhide everything. Alright, I can leave that where it is. It's not really interfering with. Well, I'll just, for now, I'll just place it right next to this object here. Alright, let's unwrap this wheel. And then I'm going to pause the video. Well, I'll unwrap that in front of you. You can fast forward if you like, if you feel like you've got the gist of it. But same thing here. Face mode, highlight everything, shift right click, mapping, planar map on X. Double click the center line, shift right click, cut UVs. So I'm going to separate this into two halves. This guy and this guy. I'm going to flip it, unfold both. Okay. Smooth it out to make sure. Yeah. And they're all perfectly the same size. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and scale this up so that it's about the same size as the other guy. And then I'm going to scale both down. Alright, lastly we need to knock out the, want that on, want this off, okay. We need to knock off this lid and the inside of the can actually. So this guy's an easy one. Again, let's hide everything but him. And select the bottom, shift right click, planar map on Y. Split the bottom over here. I'm going to go ahead and select the top. Without the bottom selected, hit G to redo last action, which is planar mapping on Y. And remember what we did before. We want to select these 4 edges here. Shift right click, cut UVs. Unfold them. Or let's smooth it out. There we go. And we get nice clean section. Let's flip this guy. Alright, let's see if we left anything out. And let's duplicate special just to kind of see how that looks. Yeah, looks good. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and save this and end this video here. This ends the unwrapping section. We could go in, I'm pretty sure you know how to unwrap the interior. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Well, I'll just do it now anyway while I have you here. And we'll have your attention, I guess. All I'm going to do is select joined. Yeah, they're joined. Okay, so I'm just going to select these 3 sides here, as you can see. Shift right click, and I can pretty much map these on Z. 2 UV, 2 shell, and if I unfold them and smooth them out, you'll see there they are. Now, I'm going to really make this super tiny because I'm going to have this garbage can full of garbage, and I'm probably going to have the lid on it the whole time. Alright, so here is our entire garbage can, and let's make sure this is next to it. In the next video, we're going to put everything in a 0 to 1 ratio, and then we're going to go ahead and start looking at texturing or doing an ambient occlusion pass on our model.